traditional Indian dessert type drink, and my family really enjoys them. They're usually heavily laden with dairy, however. So this one is dairy free. I start off with about 4 cups of frozen mango. It also calls for a couple of ripe bananas. Obviously these bananas aren't terribly ripe, but it's as ripe as I could get them. The banana, and we've got our mango, and now we're going to use a little milk alternative. This happens to be unsweetened almond milk, and that's it. And although this is a fancy schwanky blender, it's a Vitamix, and I'm addicted to them, you can do this in any kind of blender. You don't have to have a fancy blender, okay? Don't feel like you've got to have some special blender. Your Walmart variety of blender is totally fine. You just might have to run it a little bit longer than we'll have to run this. So hang on to your ears for a minute. Okay, there you go. Do what? It will once it's done, yeah. You're safe. So there's your mango lassi. You can drink it just plain, just like this, or what we like to do is put it in a special little glass. Now you can, in a regular blender, you would probably need to add a little extra liquid. I like to start off with it as thick as possible because obviously it's going to melt over time and become more liquidy. So what I normally do when I make these is I will make them, put them in a pretty glass, and just sprinkle them with a tiny bit of nutmeg. Nutmeg. A little bit of nutmeg, put a little straw in it, and people love it. Okay? Now I'll make it before dinner, and I stick them in my refrigerator. So they're in the refrigerator while we're eating our supper, and then this comes out as the dessert. Does that make sense? Another thing that we like to do is make like a little parfait with it. So I put in some of the mango lassi, and then we'll put in a little granola, and then a little more of the mango lassi, a little more of the granola. And you just keep layering it, and then I usually top it off with blueberries. It's hard to get easier than this, right? So a really tasty dessert that people really enjoy. And again, depending on your blender, you may need to add a little extra soy milk, almond milk, whatever it is that you're using. I doubled the recipe here because it's just easier to do that, frankly. The recipe calls for a cup of carob chips and a cup of peanut butter. So I just take a package of carob chips and dump them in, and a container of peanut butter and dump it in, and then I don't have to measure. Now what I do with this is I always use a double boiler, because if you get the carob chips too hot, you'll burn them. They're not as fatty as like chocolate chips, and it's easy to burn them. In fact, sometimes, and I did this tonight, when you're using natural peanut butter, you know, the oil will rise to the top. I will actually pour a little bit of that oil right into the carob chips to help them melt a little bit faster, okay? Just melt those carob chips right down over a double boiler, and then I put the peanut butter in. For the sake of time, so we can get you guys out of here, I went ahead and did that, but you know, pour it in, you can do that. And then it's really up to you what you want to do from here on. I'll show you what we do in our family, but lots of people do lots of different things. There's no right or wrong. The peanut butter or almond butter, whichever you like, with the carob is your base. Now, I've never been a candy fan. Just to sit down and eat a piece of candy is not appetizing to me. I like something crunchy. The crunchier, the better. So we typically use, and I like a little bit of sour with my sweet too. We typically use unsweetened Cranberries. I've been known to chop up papaya, dried papaya, or any other kind of, dried fruit. And then to get more crunch, I will oftentimes add nuts, pecans or walnuts. I always use chunky peanut butter or chunky almond butter. If I don't have chunky and I only have smooth, then I'll chop up some nuts myself and throw it in there. And then just add in some puffed rice. Now the recipe there calls for 4 to 5 cups. I usually don't add that much because I like all of the rice to be fully covered by the mixture. And then you just mix it in. Now, once it's all mixed up, you have a choice to make. You can either do it like I did for you tonight and make individual little candy pieces just by dropping it onto parchment paper, or you can put parchment paper on the bottom of a casserole dish and then just pour the whole mixture in and cut it. Now you can cut it into bars, you can cut it into squares. My youngest daughter has little shape, like cookie cutters, so she likes to make it real thin and then cut it into shapes, whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong. This gets all mixed in here. You do have to work just a little bit to get all that the brown rice worked in. How many of you are familiar with carob? Yeah, most people are familiar with carob. It doesn't have caffeine in it. It is naturally sweet. If the carob isn't sweet enough for you, you can add a little bit of honey. You don't have to. It doesn't have the theobromine in it that your regular chocolate chips have, which is kind of nice. It does not. Nope. Okay, so I've got that all mixed in, and then what I did for you tonight literally was just on a wax paper, just dolloped it on. And you let that sit. I made these this afternoon about 3 o'clock. So they're about as hard as they're gonna get. Obviously it's really soft at first, so you want to let it sit. I have been known in the winter to be impatient, so I stick it outside in a couple minutes. It's all hardened up, so you don't have to worry about it. Easy, easy, easy peasy. Around Christmas time, they sell those little candy holders, little papers, kind of like a miniature muffin cup. Well, these are nice. If you put it in a little miniature muffin cup little holder, stick it in a box with a bunch of special little candies for your friend or your sweetheart or your child or whatever. So there you go. A really healthy dessert. Less bad for you than the real deal. Remember, this is a special occasion. We don't find special occasions every day, right? My husband and I have literally lived all over the world, so if we tried to, we could probably find a special occasion somewhere on planet Earth every day. But that's not what we're doing, right? So Valentine's Day, enjoy something, a little treat, but try to have some nutritional value in the treats that you have.